So you might have guessed from the words that have been said already this morning and the songs that have been sung that this month our focus is on joy. The words joy to the world we hear a lot this time of year. We hear it sung, we hear it said, and we're all supposed to be joyous this time of year. And I know for some, this is not a particularly joyous time of year. It's a challenging time of year. We have some emotions of loss and past grief and things like that tend to come up. We can be, if we're lonely, this time of year makes things even lonelier. So we may sing about and talk about being joyful and not really feel it. The other thing is, our world right now is a little topsy-turvy with all sorts of things going on that we could say, well, I don't see any joy in that. And, you would be right on the surface if you just looked at the world. But I propose, and it is my hope and desire and prayer that this month we really deepen and anchor into this, that joy is absolutely here and available to every single one of us all the time because of where it actually lives. Now, this month has been inspired by this great book, happened to be called The Book of Joy, which is a synthesis of the dialogue and kind of commentary on a dialogue that happened between His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop Desmond Tutu. It's a beautiful book on the idea of joy. And last week, I shared with you from this book where the Dalai Lama believes the source of joy resides. So if you were here last Sunday, or if you are a student of Science of Mind and listen even like to one sermon or take one class, you will know that the source of joy is where? See, good job, guys. The source of joy is within us. And I remember back in my upbringing as a child and my religious upbringing in my Baptist church, we sang a gospel song about that joy, joy, joy being found where? Down in my heart. You can do it? I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where?
Down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart. Oh, I've got joy, 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 joy down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart to stay.
One more time. Come on,
I've got joy, 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 joy down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart. Oh, I've got joy, 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 joy down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart to stay.
You are in fine voice this morning. Give yourselves a hand for that. Nice. That's where it is. It's here. We just activated a bit. I love that. And I love these words of Ernest Holmes from this thing called You, my favorite book of Ernest. He says, if you would catch the vision of joy, which should be yours, and I want to just clarify, the should isn't like, it should be, but it should be yours because it's there. So it's there for you to have. You just have to activate it. So if you would catch the vision of the joy which should be yours, you must dry your tears. You must lay aside your fears. You must think from the inspirational center. I love that. Think from the inspirational center within you, which is nothing less than the divine in you singing its song of life. And that's what we just did. We activated that and we turned to that inspirational center and just sang a bit about that beautiful experience of joy. So this morning, we're going to burst with joy in a little bit of a different way. I'm actually not going to reference this book anymore. We'll get back to it next Sunday. But this Sunday is a very special Sunday that we're calling Education Sunday. And we want to celebrate and honor and recognize and burst with joy the idea of spiritual education. And then we're going to engage in an activity, in an experience where we have a chance to really activate that joy in us in a really profound way, in a way that we'll do it in here, and I just affirm and know that after we do it in here, you'll recognize the power of it, and you'll do more of it out there in the world because it's something that actually we don't do as much of as we could. So what is that activity, you might be asking? Well, hold on to your little horses because we'll get there. But first, I got a couple things I want to say. So I cannot talk about spiritual education and spiritual learning without sharing the quote from the textbook at the bottom of page 29 and carried over to 30 that my mentor, Reverend Drs. Leonard and Teddy Minks, told me. You've all heard this before if you've been here before. That they said to me, Michele, 21 years ago, if you don't memorize anything at all out of the textbook except for this one passage, this will be enough. And the one passage is, and come with me if you know it too, to learn how to think is to learn how to live. Good job. And she's looking it up. Good for you. All right. For our thoughts go into a medium that is infinite in its ability to do and to be. Now, I've gender neutralized this one if you're looking at the book, so it's going to be slightly different. We can, by thinking, bring into our experience whatsoever we desire. Oh, that's kind of exciting. If we think correctly and become a living embodiment of our thoughts. He says this is not done by holding thoughts, but by knowing the truth. I memorized that passage because Dr. Leonard Minks, my mentor, was right. That is a passage as a minister I should know, and I love it. And here at CLF, Creative Living Fellowship, and at CLU, Creative Living University, we believe that to learn how to think is to learn how to live. And so we teach not what to think, but how to think. And we teach and give you the opportunity to understand what the truth is, because Ernest says this is not about holding thoughts, but about knowing the truth. So what is the truth? Well, because this is Education Sunday, I'm going to lay out the three things that, again, when I became a minister, my mentor said there, Michele, here's the sort of interesting news of the life of a minister. You have three things to teach. That's it. Three things. But every Sunday you get to teach them in a way that people don't know you're saying the same thing. Whoa! And that's an interesting journey to be able to do that. But pretty much that's what we do here every Sunday. You hear three things from me in one way or the other. And here they are, fundamentally, that you get here at CLF, Creative Living Fellowship, Sunday service, and when you take classes through Creative Living University. Number one is that there is one power, one presence, one energy, one life, and that is God. There is only one, not two, just one. The second thing is that this one, power, presence, life, God, spirit, source, energy, universe. What other terms do you use for this? Pattern of perfection. What else? Say that again. Divine mind, consciousness, creator, love. Okay, good. I'm glad you said those things because I want you to realize that God does not care what you call it. Or him. Him, her, it, does it. God doesn't care. You can call it anything. But it is love and goodness. This is the second part. This one presence, one power is love and goodness and perfect law of creation. So God, universe, spirit, creative mind, whatever you want to call it, divine mind, is perfect love and goodness and perfect law of creation. Or said another way that Ernest says many times in the textbook, so I'm not going to quote where because it's a bunch of times through the textbook. It is love points the way and law makes the way possible. That's the second thing we teach. The third thing we teach is that this presence of love and goodness and this perfect law of creation lives and moves and has its being as in and through me and you, each and every one of us, a manifestation of that one life. That's it. Those are the three things. We speak about them every single Sunday. And it is important, I think, and I thought this long before I became a minister, because I've been in this teaching 28 years, and a minister 21, so I had 7 years of sitting in that pew right where Claudia is sitting, pretty much where you two are sitting. That's where Reverend Joyce and Claudia are sitting. That was kind of our spot. and very few. And I believe that this Sunday experience is so important and so powerful to have that weekly reminder of who we are and whose we are and what we are. And I believe that this experience is important not only for that, but for the community that we create together and the energy field that we create. As Jesus, the master teacher, said, when 2 or 3 are gathered together, I am, and we underscore that I am in the midst of thee. The great I am consciousness is elevated and expanded when we come together. Not to mention the crazy good music that we have here. I mean, that alone is a reason to come. So I think Sunday is critically important for our spiritual expansion. And I absolutely also believe that it's in the classes that we offer here, the extraordinarily high-quality classes that we offer here, where the learning that we get on Sunday is deepened, where our living embodiment of these principles begins to take place, where healing occurs that results in a transformed experience, where life purpose is found, and where we truly realize that the source of our joy is within. And I could give you a million examples in my own life where, as a student, all through these 28 years, and last 21, or probably 19, as a teacher, because I didn't start teaching right away when I became a minister here, that every single time I am in a class, whether teaching or taking, I am deepened into those things. So I want to give you just one example, and I'm going to go back to the basics, back to my foundations class, although it wasn't called that at the time because this was in 1989, and it was called Science of Mind 1. Anybody here take Science of Mind 1? You're going to date yourself. There you go. Yes, yes. So that was a long time ago, before the foundations class was created. In Science of Mind 1, I learned who I was, which I did not know heretofore that. I learned who and what God was, which I had a very different concept of God. You know, man in the sky, sitting on a cloud, big old G on his chest, looking down at me, judging me. That was the God I knew. I learned of a whole different God in that class. I transformed my thinking didn't complete it, but I began the transformation of my thinking in that class. I learned incredible tools like affirmations and meditation and visualizing. Visioning wasn't a thing yet, but it is now. Spiritual mind treatment, gratitude, forgiveness. Oh my goodness, all of those things I learned. And it was because of those things that I was able to bring into my life the one thing that I wanted more than anything that I had not yet been able to experience. Although desperately trying and failing miserably every time I tried. And that was to have a sacred, holy, passionate, gorgeous partnership. That's what I wanted more than anything in my life. And I could not get that to work. But I took this class, Science of Mind 1. I actually learned how to do, as I said, I did all those things, but spiritual mind treatment. So what do you think one of my first treatments was for? I just laid it out. You know, I learned that you need to be specific and yet let go. Be specific and not hold on to the how, but be clear, because consciousness needs to be conscious of something, is the quote from home. So I got very clear about who and what I wanted in a partner and who I was in a partnership, different from who I had been. And then I had this work experience where I had to go meet and give some materials to this guy who was doing some graphic design for my law firm. And so I just have to set this up because it's so funny, and some of you know this. But so this guy had his one-man shop. He had a one-man office, and it was directly across the street from my office. So I walked over to him, never met him before. And there's this big plate glass window, and he's sitting in front of the window. And I walk in, and when I walk in, this hunka man stands up, and I couldn't really see him because of the light except the outline, but there was kind of like angels went, ah. And there he sits right there, turning very red now. Sorry. Aw, and there he is. I know. Aw. I tell people sometimes that I feel like I made Lonnie in my basement. Like I put all the ingredients together of exactly what I wanted in a partner and then more, and that's what I got. And I mixed it up, and he didn't exist before that. I think he probably did, but I absolutely credit these teachings for my ability to become the person who could attract someone of high quality, caliber, amazing person as my beloved husband. And so that one thing I couldn't get to save my life to work, these teachings helped me do that. So I could tell you many things. It was in the Science of Mind 2 that I got the nudging to become a minister. It was in the personal growth class that I created and taught here for the first time after becoming a minister. We had so many people in it, we offered it 2 times, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, or in the evening. And I decided that I would take it as well because it was a new class and I wanted to experience it while I taught it. And in that class, those of you who have taken it, you know that you take an issue and you work on that issue through prayer and support and do all sorts of beautiful things around that issue. And my issue was, we were going the next summer to celebrate our 10th wedding anniversary to the Caribbean with some friends on a sailboat, dream vacation. But all of those friends, including my husband, except for me, I was the odd man out here, wanted to scuba dive while we were in the capital of scuba diving, the Caribbean. My goodness, you have to scuba dive. I was terrified beyond terrified at the thought of scuba diving. I would die and my buddy would die. I was pretty sure of that. So I thought maybe that would be a good thing to work on in this personal growth class. And because of that, we have had in the last 20 years, 15 years, amazing, joy-filled experiences under the sea, all over the world, in gorgeous places and exquisite experiences. So, those are the things that spiritual learning has served me on. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But I don't want you to just hear from me this morning. I want you to hear from 2 other beautiful souls who have had also life-transforming, come on, Abby, come on up, life-transforming experiences through taking our foundations and other classes. So first is Evelyn Lisitsky. Please give her a hand. There you go.
Thank you. Well, I'm a little bit nervous, even though this is my second time doing this today. So excuse me a moment while I imagine you in your underwear. Except some of you aren't wearing it, so forget that. And let me think of you as one with a big capital zero. Oh, I'm sorry, O. Okay, so I'm a huge introvert, and probably on a scale of 1 to 100, I'm a feverish 1.2. I've always blended into the wall from day one, as much as a 300-pound plus person could. And recently I've released a lot of weight, and I'm coming out of my shell. And I have to say that this foundations class was a big part of me coming out of my shell. I've been coming to this church regularly for the last 3 years, but I've kind of been around it for the last 12. And I have to give kudos to Barb Johnstone, who brought me back to church the second time, and to Elaine. And Elaine, you probably don't remember this, but you actually brought me to CLF the first time 12 years ago with Lindsay. So between 12 years ago and 5 years ago, I was kind of drifting. And then in the last 5 years, I've just been kind of wondering, should I take foundations? Oh, it's not at the right time. But, you know, it was all an excuse. So I finally decided to take it, and Reverend Jorge couldn't fast enough get the registration under my pencil when I finally told him I would take it. But I have to tell you, at first I was cynical. I thought, well, maybe I'll learn a little bit about who this Ernie guy is. And maybe I'll learn about the history of religious science, whatever. And it was slow. It was a slow start, but with the love and support of Reverend Michele and Reverend Cindy and all the beautiful and wonderful people in that class, it was just an awesome class. And it kind of hit me one night when I was in that great thinking room that I have at my house called a shower, that I'm learning about the divinity that I am, and that all I have to do is be. I don't have to prove anything to anybody, and that I can live in joy and be comfortable in my own skin for the first time in my life. I could get rid of all those hoarding habits I had, like hoarding fear and shame, sadness, unhealthy habits, love myself, and be with myself. In the beginning, it was like, oh my gosh, we have to do homework. We have to meet in groups, which means I'm going to have to carry the group like I always had to do in school. And we had to be vulnerable with each other, and that's not easy for me. I mean, I've done it with really close friends, but with people I don't know. One of my least favorite parts of the service has always been the meet and greet, because I'm like, ooh, don't hug me. But I'm actually finding that it's not bad. I kind of like it. And I've always used the excuse, well, I have to be in the bookstore and work in case somebody comes in, after service starts, which has never happened. Maybe twice. But, today I stayed in the service, and it was great. And I have to say that it took a village to get me here, and it took me and my perseverance to get me to where I am right now. And I want to say I love everybody, and I want to thank everybody. And Pam also. I've known Pam since before CLF, and several people I've known since before CLF. And just knowing that this is kind of family to me, and that I can be loved on. And I actually took 2 classes, one from Raquel, which actually made it even better. And I have to say one more thing before I close. For my entire life, my mother tried to convince me to be in Toastmasters to give me some boost of self-confidence, because I'm not very confident about myself. And today, after the first service, 3 people came up to me and said, oh, you should try Toastmasters. And one lady gave me her card, and I'm going to try it.
Absolutely. Yes, we do. All right. I have a second person that I want to share briefly with you as well, and she is our classic overachiever. Just want to say, she'll tell you why, and we love her, Suzanne Chitty. Come on up, Suzanne.
So I love that, Evie. Your mom came and talked to you after the service today. That was cool, right? So I'm actually not surprised that Reverend Michele asked me to speak today about the classes, because, as she said, I am a classic overachiever. I took 5 classes in this last semester and 1 workshop, so I think that actually, puts me over the top there. So, but there's a reason. I say that for a reason. The reason is that immersion technique works for me really well, right? So I need a lot of input on the same things from different directions, but the same feeling, right, in order to make that mind shift. And the reason I need that mind shift is because I had a lot of thoughts before I had a new thought, right? I had a lot of years of the same thought, maybe, even over and over again. You know how we do that. Just keeps going round and round and round. So, so that immersion technique really worked for me. And I better look at my notes here. Okay. So, so that mind shift, the mind shift, reading really helps, like reading books. I know you all read, probably you read a lot of books. You come here, so you hear a lot of things, and we read books. And then we get to discuss them, so that's really good. And I have a really a strong practice at home with my wife, Lisa, of reading and discussing information, which helps it to go that little bit deeper. But in a class situation, you also have the fellowship, right? You not only have your mind and whoever you inhabit with, but you have other minds that bring other wonderful things that you hadn't even thought about. And that really impresses upon me and made that big shift in me. So that mind shift was really important, because I didn't know that the reason for me being on earth and the reason for me to be on earth is to experience joy. And I didn't know that. So I had to shift my mind, because now I know it. So it's pretty awesome, right? Yeah, woo, right on. So what the classes allowed me to do was to develop a spiritual practice because I kind of had one, I kind of thought about having one, I kind of maybe thought I had one, or maybe didn't have one at all. Really? Just the idea of having one was kind of cool. But in the classes, it supports you to really, or supported me to really have a practice. And these posters that you see around with the Sacred Seven are included in every class. I have experienced many of those Sacred Seven, and repeatedly, right? So it just got into that pattern for me and allowed me to have that mind shift. So now that I've had the mind shift, am I done? No, I'm not done. Now I get to go to class and get more of those tools to help me go deeper, right? And to really create what I want in this world. So that's what class has done for me.
Thank you both, Suzanne and Evie. Those were amazing, and I know inspirational words. So I said we would talk a little bit about spiritual education and the power of it, and we've done that. And then I said we would engage in an experience that would activate the joy in us, and an experience that we don't have enough of, I don't think, in our world, because we don't consciously do it. So this morning we're going to get to consciously do it. And now I'm going to tell you what it is. That practice is the practice of genuine, true, deeply felt, exuberant appreciation. Appreciation of others, giving as well as receiving. Because guess what? Both giving and receiving appreciation activate that joy center in us. Both of them. So when we give true, genuine appreciation for someone, our joy center is activated. When we allow, and there's an allowing needed there, when we allow true, genuine appreciation to come to us and we receive it, our joy center is activated. So we're going to have a chance to do that right now, briefly, but in a couple of very important ways. So whether you're giving joy or receiving joy, I want you to do it with enthusiasm and excitement, and especially if you're receiving, to be open to receive and really accept the amazing person that you are because of who you are, and particularly this morning because of the roles that you have played here or the things you've done here. So the first group I would like to ask to stand so that we can crazy appreciate you is our Board of Regents, which is a board of gorgeous souls. Stand up, Board of Regents. Yes, yes, yes. Stay standing. Stay standing. Woo! Nice, nice. So our Board of Regents is the group, and I stand on that, sit on that as well, is the group who oversees all of our education here, from evaluating new class proposals, workshop proposals, to recruiting and training teachers, to auditing class, to everything that has anything to do with our Creative Living University. The Board of Regents is in charge of that and responsible for that. So rock on, Board of Regents. The second group of people I want to acknowledge are our 2017 instructors and assistants. So if you instructed this year or assisted this year, stand up. Woo! Receive, receive, receive. Yes, yes. Oh, do you feel that joy being activated in this? You feel it? Now, if you are one of the 138 students who graduated from a class this year, 138 students graduated from a class this year, if you're one of them, stand and be appreciated. Yeah, look at all these. Woo-hoo! Rock on. Good job. Good job. Now, we have a few, more than just Suzanne, some other overachievers. We have a number of people who have taken 4 classes this year, which is a pretty big load. So I want to call your name specifically and invite you to stand. And we have a gift for you to support you in continuing to take classes. And that is actually a book bag from Creative Living University to carry your books. So if I call your name, would you please stand? Some of these folks were already in first service, but I want to call everyone's name. So Phyllis Avalon, Reverend Joyce Bukers, Dennis Deppie, Stephanie Deppie, Reverend Sandra, stand up if you hear your name. You've heard your name because you're here, I see you. Reverend Sandra Hopper, Barbara Johnstone, Maggie McClellan, Marilyn Strain, Peggy Struble, Lonnie Thacker, Lisa Wallman. All right. Congratulations. Keep up the good work. And then finally, I want to acknowledge our serious overachievers. And those are people who have taken not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 classes this year. And there are 3 of you. So I want you to stand, and you also are going to get a book bag plus a gift certificate to go toward your next textbook, because of course I know you're going to keep taking classes in 2018. And so would you please stand, Suzanne Chitty, Elaine Hawkins, and Kathy Weber. Woohoo! Good job, guys. Good job. Good job. That Suzanne already got hers in first service. So I want to bring to a close our time this morning with a quote from Ernest Holmes and a question, one that I posed last week. I want to pose it again, and I want to add a little bit to the end of it. So Holmes said, in this thing called you, spirit is happy, whole, free, filled with joy, eternal in its existence, and can provide you with everlasting expansion. All your hopes, highest hopes and dreams have come from it. The echo of its being is in your intellect. The voice of its unspoken word is in your mind. The feeling of its light and life is in your heart. And the emotion of its imagination is in your soul. I am bursting with joy to tell you that here at CLF and at CLU, these words of truth, we are here to support you in recognizing them and living them. So let us do that for you. My question is, what would your life be like today, tomorrow, this week, this month, in 2018, if you knew your purpose was to live in joy? What would you shift? What would you change? How would you show up if you knew your purpose was to live in joy? And my addendum question is simply this: how might Creative Living University support you in that joy? So as you contemplate that question, I invite you to close your eyes. And we turn to that one presence, that power, that one life that is God, that is the source of joy, because God is joy. God is the very essence of joy. God is joy itself. Joy is God. And I am, and each one of us is made in that image and likeness. We are made of joy, and so we are joy as well. And I speak my word here this morning, activating the perfect law of creation that always and in all ways says yes. And I know that as we have activated, we have stimulated this joy within us today, that it continues to burst forth from us as we move through life in this beautiful place of appreciation. Deep, true, strong, genuine appreciation for others, for ourselves, for life. And know that we are the catalysts for joy in the world. As we express joy in our lives, we bring joy to the world. As we bring joy to the world, we change the world. Now I'm going to change that right now and make that a personalized statement. As I bring joy to my world, I bring joy to the world, and I change the world. Can we do that together? As I bring joy in my world, I bring joy to the world, and I change the world. Let's try that again. As I bring joy in my world, I bring joy to the world, and I change the world. And for that, I am very grateful. I say thank you, Spirit, thank you, life, thank you, God. I know that it is done. It is so. These words have been spoken. The law has activated, and so I release, I let go and trust. I let go and know. And together we say, and so it is. Amen.